You know, it's funny when you look at lines sometimes, and it's not that lines tell you anything, because I always get a laugh when gamblers and handicappers alike will say, oh, the lines are trying to tell you something. But sometimes a number will just throw up a little bit of a red flag. And it's like a system of checks and balances for me personally. And that was the case with last night's two games. You had Pittsburgh, a 3.5-point favorite at home against Carolina. You had in the ACC college game, you had NC State, an 18.5-point favorite at home against Wake Forest. And NC State, let's talk about that game. There was an NC State team that had absolutely dominated that series against the Demon Deacons, straight up and against the spread. And you had a Wake Forest team that had lost its starting quarterback the week prior in a double-digit loss to Syracuse. And you had NC State that had played well in its previous game. And you figured, well, NC State clearly should be a double-digit favorite. What were they, like an 18.5-point chalk last night? On the other hand, in the NFL game, you had a Pittsburgh team that had won 4 straight. You had a Carolina team that had won 3 in a row. Both teams have been scoring a lot of points. Carolina, though, had been playing some really good defense of late. And you figured it would be maybe a high-scoring game, but be a close game. But as I'm looking at the games, I'm thinking to myself, okay, yes, NC State had dominated the series. Wake Forest was without its starting quarterback, but who had NC State played well against this year? What had the Wolfpack done to deserve to be a double-digit favorite against anybody this season? And then, if you got my play last night, and I had a top-rated 15-dime best bet on the Steelers, if you happen to get my analysis, I said that I'd watched Carolina in a couple of their road games this season. They lost their initial game in week number 2 on the road at Atlanta. Then later in the season, they played at Washington. They fell down by double digits early. An aborted comeback attempt fell short, but they played awful offensively. And then the following week, they were at Philadelphia, another game. They played awful offensively, but the Eagles collapsed in the fourth quarter and allowed the Panthers to sneak off with the road win. And the thought from those two games, to me, and I put it in my analysis last night, was the Panthers simply do not have that quick strike arsenal offensively when they go up against another team that can put points on the board quickly, like the Steelers can and did last night, and especially on the road, where, as I pointed out in my analysis as well last night, Carolina averaging like 33 points a game on the road, but only like 20.5 points, 33 points at home, but only like 20.5 points on the road. So when you look at those lines last night, Pittsburgh 3.5-point favorite, clearly a bad number. NC State 18.5-point favorite, clearly a bad number. But initially on the surface, all things being considered, you would think that NC State, even though it was a big number, would have been the easier play perhaps, because Wake Forest was without its starting quarterback, and Wake Forest had been playing so poorly almost the entire season. So anyway, I had the 15-dime best bet last night on the Steelers, and it wasn't just me. The big play last night happened to be Shawn Michaels, the first time ever, 150-dime release, and of course in his career in the NFL, and he had it last night on the Steelers, so props going out to Shawn as he cashed in as the Steelers won that game with ease. And tonight he happens to be the featured play at the site. Tonight, the 10th 100-dime max wager in college football this season, his 4th in a row over the past 2 weeks, and number 6 out of 7 the past 2 weeks combined. It's on the Syracuse-Louisville game. And just like last night, you get it for half off by using coupon code HALF, H-A-L-F. HALF is that coupon code. And by the way, you got to love live videos. Let me just make sure that is the right coupon code. Yes, it is. HALF is the right word, and all the other discounts and coupon codes are over on the home page. And by the way, I will just tell you this. Last night, Shawn and I were both on the Steelers. I checked before I did start this video. Shawn and I both have the same side in this particular game. So, since that's my best bet tonight, let's talk about the other game, the Fresno game against Boise State. And this is an interesting game. You've got Fresno State a 2.5-point favorite in this contest. And listen, no ifs, ands, or buts. Fresno State has been playing some great ball here. The Bulldogs are coming off a 48-3 win at UNLV the week prior. They won 50-20 at home against Hawaii. They've won 7 straight games. It started with a big win at UCLA. They're 8-1 on the season. And then you have to ask yourself, hold it. If they're playing so great, why are they only a 2.5-point favorite in this contest. Okay, well, it's a tough place to win, right? The Smurf turf, playing at Boise State. And the Broncos have won 4 straight. They just beat BYU 21-16 at home on Saturday. The week before, they won 38 at Air Force. But, Boise, not a particularly good team at home versus the spread. In fact, they've only covered 6 of their last 25 games at home since 2015. Excuse me, guys. It's really hard to talk after having the mouth surgery yesterday. It's hard to keep my breath and everything going. And you got Fresno on an 18-3-2 spread run under Coach Jeff Tedford. So again, why is Fresno State only a 2.5-point favorite in this game? And why is Boise a home dog for the first time in 18 years? So I thought about this. Well, then you have to look at the schedule. Who has Fresno State played? I mean, you beat Idaho. You beat a bad UCLA team. You beat Toledo. You beat Nevada, you beat Wyoming, you beat New Mexico, you beat Hawaii, you beat UNLV. You beat the Little Sisters of the Poor. That's who you beat. Excuse me one more time, guys. This is hard to do. And you lost to Minnesota when Minnesota had Rodney Smith. So you haven't played anybody. Boise State, on the other hand, has played a pretty damn competitive schedule. And Boise State's 2 losses this year at Oklahoma State and at home against San Diego State. And remember, the big game for Fresno is against San Diego State next week. Other than that, Boise, has played some of the same Little Sisters of the Poor. They did, of course, beat Air Force. They did beat BYU. They beat Connecticut. They beat Troy. They beat Nevada. They beat Colorado State, which is nothing to brag about. This is going to be an interesting game, in terms of, can the Fresno State defense, number 1 in the Mountain West Conference in scoring defense, number 1 in passing defense, number 1 in third down defense, a team that is holding opposing quarterbacks to 48.3% completions and 178 yards per game. Can they stop Boise State quarterback Brett Rippon, who's completed like 67% of his passes this season for 24 touchdowns? Now, Fresno can move the ball effectively as well. Fresno is playing right now behind a kind of a banged-up offensive line. And you got a Boise team that can move the ball through the air, not quite as effectively on the ground. A Boise team that did not look good in its Saturday night game at home against BYU, really struggling to beat a Cougars team that the week prior lost at home 7-6 to Northern Illinois. You lost to a Mid-American Conference team at home, and yet that team then, BYU, gave Boise all types of fits on Boise's home turf a week later, right? So I think it's an interesting game. I think it's a difficult game. You got a Fresno State defense that has only allowed a total of 36 points the past 5 games. But again, who have you really played if you're Fresno State? I'm willing to go with Fresno State in this game. I'm willing to lay the 2.5 points in this contest. I think this is again, an interesting game. I think it's a very difficult game, though, however, to bet and to handicap. I'm willing to give a lean to the Bulldogs, but I can't say I'm totally in love with this particular contest because, again, I do believe Boise State has played the tougher schedule, and I think Boise State is a decent team that just doesn't always play consistently for 4 strong quarters. But I'll go with Fresno and give them the benefit of the doubt and go with the Bulldogs in this contest. How about an NBA play here tonight? The Celtics are a 5.5-point dog at Utah. This, of course, the long-awaited return of Gordon Hayward to Salt Lake City. Last year, of course, had that gruesome broken ankle foot injury in the first game of the season, so never got to return after abandoning the Jazz. The Celtics come here on the second leg of a back-to-back game after rallying from 20 down at halftime and 15 in the fourth quarter to beat the Phoenix Suns last night 116-109 in overtime. Kyrie Irving will not play tonight as he's attending his grandfather's funeral. Utah's coming off a 117-102 win at Dallas on Wednesday, which snapped their 4-game losing streak. Jazz have not played well this season because a team that was so good defensively a year ago entered that Wednesday game against Dallas 13th in points allowed in the league, giving up 110 a game, and 27th in field goal defense at 48.3. The fact that Kyrie Irving is out tonight doesn't bother me a bit because they got used to not playing with him last year, and with Terry Rozier in there, I think they will do just fine at the point guard position. I like the Celtics, even though they're on the second of back-to-back nights and playing in elevation. I like the Celtics plus the points here tonight because the Jazz, again, are not playing well defensively. Donovan Mitchell is back after missing 2 out of 3 games. He played well Wednesday night against the Mavericks. I just think that this is going to be a close game. It's going to come down to the wire. I like the Celtics' depth in here, and again, it doesn't matter to me that Irving is not going to be in the lineup. And I like the Celtics to pull together. They don't win the game, but I think they stay within the number to get the road cover. So again, Fresno State and the Celtics are your 2 complimentary plays, and I'll talk to you again on Saturday.